few months ago, my grandparents in California gave my family some of their movies to make way for more space in their home. They definitely expected me to watch some of them, but I'm a little embarrassed admitting that as of writing this, I've barely touched any of them. So let's change that. In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 different movies they sent me. Some of these I've not seen in years and have long since forgotten the plot beats. Others I've never seen at all. Disclaimer before we start. I'm not going to talk about these movies in the same amount of detail that I would in my game reviews. Consider this more of a surface level video rather than an in-depth analysis. I'm not going into extensive spoilers for any of these films, so if you're considering watching any of these, you'll be fine watching this first. Also, feel free to tab over for this video. There's no extensive editing for this, just the occasional images over gameplay footage. You're not missing much going audio only. So, let's begin.
Mamma mia, here I go again. My, how can I resist you?
So first up on the list is Mamma Mia! This is a musical based on a rom-com play of the same name. It's about a soon-to-be bride named Sophie who wants her father to walk her down the aisle on her wedding day. Sounds pretty simple until you find out that she has no earthly idea who he is. After reading her mom, Donna's diary, Sophie finds out that Donna slept with 3 different guys around the time she could have been conceived. So Sophie does the only logical thing and invites all of them to the wedding. The 3 men are Bill, Harry, and Sam. Sophie hopes that by seeing all of them next to each other, she'll instantly find out which one is her biological father. Unfortunately, once she gets them in the same place, her fantasy comes tumbling down as she has no idea who her dad is. When Donna finds out that her previous hookups are on the island, she freaks out because they remind her of her promiscuous past. She tells them to leave the island and never come back, which comes as quite a shock to them as they believed Donna wanted them there. They initially honor her request, but when Sophie misleads all of them into believing they are 100% her real father in a last-ditch attempt to make them stay, they decide that respecting Donna's wish is no longer an option. This DVD case was pretty well worn by the time my grandparents gave it to me, and I'm not shocked by that. Mamma Mia is exactly the kind of movie I can imagine them watching over and over again. It's got their exact sense of humor. If I learned they watched this a dozen times, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I enjoyed a lot of the jokes too. I wouldn't consider them to be gut-bustingly hilarious, but there were moments that got a chuckle out of me. One that comes to mind is when Bill and Harry are trying to talk with each other about how they think Sophie is their real daughter, but the roundabout way they discuss this leads to them thinking the other one is gay. It doesn't sound that funny when I'm merely describing it, but when you see it on screen it works way better. My favorite part of the movie was, unsurprisingly, the musical numbers. All of them are covers of songs from the Swedish band ABBA. I'm not super familiar with their work, but based on what I heard here, I really should check out more of their stuff. Most of the songs were at least good, my favorites being Dancing Queen, Lay All Your Love on Me, and SOS. I'm aware that most of the actors' performances received flack for being poor in comparison to ABBA's originals. I checked out the original songs for comparison, and yeah, they're better, but I still enjoyed Mamma Mia's versions plenty. For some songs, the visuals go totally crazy. My favorite example is during the song Dancing Queen. At first, it's just Donna's friends trying to cheer her up after she sees her previous hookups. Then they go outside and a few more women join them. Then by the song's end, I don't know man, I guess every woman on the island decided that giving Donna an ego boost was their top priority. One touch that I appreciate is how Donna and her friends are allowed to be goofy and have fun. In a lot of more recent movies and TV shows, middle-aged people are portrayed as having no sense of humor, especially after having kids. But if you've ever interacted with somebody in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, you'd know that's not true in the slightest. This has been a pet peeve of mine for the last few years, and I'm glad that Mamma Mia avoids it. I selected Mamma Mia because my boyfriend really wanted to watch it with me. He's seen it a lot since he was a little kid, so he has tons of nostalgia for it already. Plus, he's a massive theater nerd and has been getting me into musicals for the last few months. I'm glad he pushed me into checking this out. Mamma Mia is a pretty good time.
Ira, what is it?
I don't know.
So let's go from a movie my grandparents watched a lot to a movie they never watched at all. I'm not kidding, the clear plastic was still in the case when I got it. Where the Wild Things Are is a fantasy movie about a boy named Max. He's kind of a little shit, causing problems for both his mom and sister. After biting his mom while she has company over, he runs away from home. He finds a boat in a lake that transports him to an island inhabited by the Wild Things, a group of 7 monsters who have formed a family of sorts. Among them is the idealistic and quick-to-anger Carol, the lovers Judith and Ira, the often ignored Alexander, the quiet and strong Bernard, the loyal Douglas, and the understanding KW, who is a bit of a loner compared to the rest of the group. The group initially tries to eat Max, but he tricks them into believing he's a ruler with magical powers. Upon hearing this, the Wild Things declare him their king and place him in charge of bettering their island. Things initially go well for Max, as everyone is happy with his idealistic thinking and big promises, But as the days go on, Max learns the practical realities of running a civilization, and the Wild Things get more disillusioned with his leadership. This is not my first time seeing this movie. My mom rented it immediately after it came out on Redbox, but I was pretty young back then, so I forgot a lot of the important plot points. What I did not forget was how creeped out it made me. There are a lot of times where this movie goes in some very uncomfortable directions. One scene that is always stuck in my head is when Max hides in KW's stomach to avoid being eaten by someone else. The fact that Max must resort to this to protect himself was deeply disturbing to me back then, and still a little bit creepy to me even today. The main factor that contributes to the eerie vibe isn't even anything visual, it's the behavior of the Wild Things. Even though the Wild Things are these very powerful creatures, they talk and act like children. Listen to this clip and tell me it doesn't sound like something a little kid would say.
Douglas just did it.
Yeah, but he did it by accident. You did it on purpose. And he didn't step on the face part of my head.
Unlike a kid, however, the Wild Things repeatedly demonstrate that they hold physical power over Max, so he can't de-escalate situations either with reason or force. This makes for some very engaging drama between Max and the Wild Things. The slow decay of Max's social standing among these beasts is uncomfortable to watch, but impossible to pull away from. If you plan on showing this to your kids, then I think it would be okay for them. I can understand why parents would be hesitant about showing this to their children because of the disturbing content, but I watched this as a kid and I'm pretty sure I turned out fine. It's not ultra-violent or anything. Carol literally rips off Douglas's arm at one point, but there's no blood, it's just sand. And besides, kids should be exposed to some distressing content. They can't spend their whole lives watching brain rot. Give them media that makes them feel something, even if that thing is utter dread. Originally, the Wild Things were entirely CGI characters, but the decision was made to use costumes with VFX enhancements on the faces, and man am I glad they made this choice. I'm not entirely sure how to explain my feelings, but there's something about scenes and characters that are mostly CGI that never look right to me. Compare the final fight scenes in Star Wars Episode 5 versus Episode 3. Despite the fact that a lot more is happening in Episode 3's duel, the one in Episode 5 just feels more real to me, probably because more of it was real. So overall, I was pretty glad to revisit The Wild Things. I think it's aged remarkably well over the years, and I'd recommend it to people looking for a good, emotional movie, and also to people looking to mildly traumatize their children. I know you guys are out there.
What brings you to Russia, Mr. Palmer? Business or pleasure?
Pleasure. But I haven't had very much so far.
So how many of you have heard of Harry Palmer? Because I didn't until I watched this movie. He was the main character in a bunch of British spy movies based on Len Deighton novels. These films included The Ipcress File, Funeral in Berlin, and Billion Dollar Brain, all of which premiered in the 1960s. I'm not entirely sure how well known this trilogy is to people who aren't spy movie fanatics, but I can at least tell you that those movies are more well known than Bullet to Beijing. This was uploaded in its entirety to YouTube back in 2022, and in the comments of that video, someone asked the uploader to post the other Harry Palmer movies, and they said they couldn't because they were getting copyright strikes. Which implies that the people who own this movie couldn't be bothered to do the same for this one. Guess even they forgot about it. When I got this from my grandparents, the DVD case had the plastic taken off, but it was in such good condition that I can't imagine they watched it much. Until they tell me otherwise, I'm running under the assumption that they watched this movie once and forgot about it until they decided to give it to my family. Bullet to Beijing takes place 3 decades after the original trilogy. At the start of the film, Harry is fired from MI5 for no reason, really. The guy who fired him didn't even try to justify his decision. He receives a job offer to work for a Russian billionaire named Alex, who informs him that a lab-created virus called Alarex has been stolen by a Russian gang and is being sold to North Korea. If it were to fall into their hands, tens of millions of people would die in state-sponsored terrorist attacks. After offering Harry $250,000, he agrees to work for him alongside Alex's assistants, Nikolai and Natasha. This movie presents a rather realistic look into this kind of work. It's mostly Harry talking to a variety of suspicious actors, attempting to piece together the motives behind their actions. This isn't inherently a problem as long as the mystery is interesting, but unfortunately it kinda wasn't. I saw the twist coming a mile away. When action scenes did come up, I thought they lacked, I don't know exactly what you would call it, punch? It's kind of like the movie equivalent to the Tortured Poets Department. In that album, the range of the songs is about 1 octave at best, like elevator music, and they're mostly at a consistent mid-tempo. When the songs get to the chorus, where you would expect a wide range of high and low notes or a change in speed, it just doesn't happen, resulting in songs that feel unfulfilling to listen to. A lot of the action scenes in this movie are the same way. You would expect an action scene to feel fast and dynamic, especially in comparison to the rest of the film, but they don't. Most of the action is very slow and uninteresting, making these scenes ineffective at maintaining my attention. This movie is unapologetically British in its style of humor, which is to say it makes fun of anything that's not British. For example, when Harry is paying this shady guy named Louis for information on the location of the Alarix supply, Louis makes sure that he pays him 250 American dollars rather than rubles, since the Russian economy in the 90s was kind of... And Harry says, "Why not, Louis?" Clearly disappointed that he has to spend more cash. There are other bits that I liked too, like when Harry leaves a car during an intense chase, and then he sees that the driver is a woman. He's like, "She's a girl?" And Nikolai says, "She knows." That genuinely got a laugh out of me. Unfortunately, some of these jokes are hindered by poor audio balancing. Certain lines were rather difficult to hear, either because there was too much background noise or the actors mumbled their lines. I had to replay too many scenes for my liking to make sure I heard things correctly. I originally planned to watch this movie with my brother, but after about 10 minutes of these audio issues, he just dipped entirely. If it's any consolation, Bullet to Beijing has made me a little curious to check out the original trilogy of Harry Palmer movies. The fact that even fans of those films cared little for this indicates that they're most likely of better quality. Regardless, Bullet to Beijing, at least on its own merits, falls short of earning my recommendation. And after this video, I'm probably gonna make like everyone else and forget this existed. Volunteers is about this rich college brat named Lawrence who's found himself over $20,000 in debt. Escaping responsibility for paying it off, he fakes his way into a US Peace Corps plane on its way to Thailand, meeting the eager-to-help Tom Tuttle and Beth, a girl who takes a liking to him right up to the point where he tries to get in her pants. He plans to leave Thailand immediately after he arrives, but his father, sick and tired of dealing with him, pulls some levers to make his son stay there for the next 2 years. In Thailand, the three are assigned to a small village near a river with the goal of helping them build a bridge. While there, they're harassed by communist guerrilla forces, a drug cartel, and local wildlife. While Tom and Beth initially struggle to adapt to life in Thailand, Lawrence surprisingly hits it off with several villagers after teaching them how to gamble with cards. But when he gets kidnapped by the leader of the drug cartel, Chung Mi, he's forced to either speed up construction of the bridge or stand up to him and likely be killed. Most of the humor comes from having a bunch of characters with contrasting personality traits just interacting with each other, like seeing the frustration from Beth over how easy life in Thailand has been for Lawrence, or the self-serving Lawrence getting annoyed with Tom's enthusiasm for helping others. God forbid. The funniest scenes of all come from Lawrence, who is clearly the star of the show. At the start of the movie, he's a selfish jackass who does nothing other than make the lives of everyone around him more difficult. By the end, he's grown to value the perspectives of those around him, while still having those bits of selfishness come out when the stakes for others are low. Change takes time, guys. Though its main focus is on comedy, Volunteers is still surprisingly good at pulling my heartstrings. As the movie went on, I really started to feel bad for the native people in this village. You can clearly tell that they're traumatized from having to deal with bad actors for years, and Lawrence actually standing up for them, albeit unknowingly at first, gives them a lot of hope for their future. My grandparents watched this at least once based on the lack of plastic coating, but given the quality of the DVD case, they probably didn't watch it a ton. This isn't shocking to me based on the genre, which I'm not sure is their thing. I'm assuming they only bought this because the movie stars Tom Hanks and John Candy. This was admittedly the hardest of all these movies to review because it's very difficult to talk about good comedy films beyond saying, this is funny and you should go watch it, but this is funny and you should go watch it.
Nice to be back, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, where are you from? What's your name?
Aladdin.
Aladdin! Hello, Aladdin. Nice to have you on the show.
I first saw Aladdin when I was 11 years old. I was at my grandparents' house on a vacation, and they were busy with some other stuff, so they gave me this exact VHS to get me out of their hair for a little bit. And it worked. From beginning to end, it had me totally captivated. For the two of you who've never seen Aladdin, it's about this street rat whose name you've likely already guessed based on the title of this movie. He's in quite a bit of trouble with law enforcement in the city of Agrabah on account of his constant thievery. He falls in love with the sheltered princess of Agrabah, Jasmine, but since the law of the land states that she can only marry a prince, he doesn't have a shot with her. A damn shame, since she actually kinda likes him too. After getting arrested, he gets duped by Jafar, the chief advisor for the king of Agrabah, into doing his dirty work. You see, deep in the Arabian desert, there exists a magic lamp hidden within the Cave of Wonders. Jafar is unable to enter the cave on account of his background and selfish personality, but Aladdin, a man who grew up in poverty and has remained kind regardless, is. During a pretty intense encounter with Jafar at the literal mouth of the cave, Aladdin ends up trapped underground, though Jafar fails to take the lamp for himself, leaving it stuck with Aladdin. As it turns out, the lamp is home to a genie, an immortal being with the ability to grant 3 wishes for his master with minimal stipulations. After tricking the genie into getting him out of the cave, Aladdin sets about using the genie's magic to woo over Jasmine as the famous Prince Ali, while Jafar continues scheming to get his lamp back once he realizes Ali's true identity. This movie still looks gorgeous even today. All of the characters are fluid and expressive, the genie being the best example of this. Whenever he's on screen, 9 times out of 10 he's stealing the show with his visual gags, even if they often conflict with the setting of early modern Arabia. The music was fantastic too. I thought the best songs were Friend Like Me and Prince Ali. Probably because they heavily feature Robin Williams, who is easily my favorite actor in this whole movie. But even the songs without him are pretty excellent. There wasn't a single track that had me longing for it to end. I've got a lot of praise for this movie's sense of humor as well. One of my favorite bits is when Jasmine is wandering around the marketplace and she sees this kid who's hungry, so she just takes an apple from one of the tables and hands it to him without realizing she needs to pay for it first. Another bit I like is when Aladdin tricks the genie into getting him out of the cave without even using one of his wishes. The reaction the genie has to realizing he's been played a fool gets me even today. I doubt my grandparents watched this one much, if at all. My guess is they only bought it to give my brother and I, and probably their other grandkids, something to watch. But I'm pretty glad they did, since it introduced me to such a great movie. But hey, if they don't want it, I'm more than happy to have it in my collection. Same with all these movies. So one cool thing about the Aladdin case is that it came with all these old advertisements. Walt Disney Home Video Mailing List? Nah, I'm too old for that. The Magic of Disney's Aladdin for the Super NES. Or Sega Genesis, we don't discriminate. Oh, Pizza Hut. This seems pretty old though, I can't imagine they'll accept it. On the other hand, I don't see an expiration date anywhere on this. Yeah, fuck it, it's worth a shot.
Jake XXX from Grindr, is this you?
Yes, it is.
Well, my name is Bren from Predator Catchers. Why were you talking to my 14-year-old nephew?
Hey guys! It worked!